Alright, we're on to the next phase of the project. Hopefully you have your face drawn in pencil. Should have erased most of the construction lines and construction marks. What I have here is a quickly drawn face of my face, sort of looks like me, and I'm going to start filling in this face with my charcoal pencil. Now remember, the charcoal pencil is something we're going to use to blend into this face. So we're not going to worry too much about the details. Details we do last. First thing we do are the large spaces. I've been talking a lot about how we never draw the lines that define the nose. And this is really important for the charcoal pencil. Instead of drawing those lines, we're going to put in the shading. And the shading helps sculpt the nose, sculpt the other features, so that it doesn't pop out and look like a cartoon. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to start in a simple area, just sort of the side of the cheek, right over here. And what I'm going to do, the same thing I did with the sphere, and you need a mirror too. You know, you're going to be looking in the mirror to see where the light is hitting your face. But in general, you know, the light is going to hit more of the raised areas and less of the areas that are pushed back. So the side of the cheek, I'm going to start with that, and I'm just going to draw a light line that defines the edge of the cheek. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did with the sphere. And that is, I'm going to start to add just some of these very, very lightly. I'm not pushing hard at all on the charcoal pencil. Just doing this very lightly. And I'm just going to start adding some shading into the face. And I'm using my face as a guideline as to how I should be shading this in. And you need to be, again, looking at the mirror, seeing where the light is hitting, and use that as a guideline. So again, we're just sort of filling in the face with shading right now. Very lightly. It's almost like you're just letting the pencil drag along the paper. You're not even pushing against the paper. You're sort of letting that charcoal pencil just drag along the paper. And then as you get to the different areas, you know, you're going to lighten up or push just a little harder. So at the bottom of the chin, there's a little bit more shadow there. So I'm going to go over that area a little bit more. Then I'm going to come back with my blending tool. Again, either using the blending stump or your finger, and just softening those lines up. You want to soften those lines up. Now I'm going to jump over the nose. I've got sort of this side of the head, and I can probably do that over here as well. But that's a starting point. With the nose, again, look in the mirror. See where the light is catching on your nose. See where that light is catching. And start to define the nose with that shading. Remember, you sort of have this bulb, the bulb of your nose, and on the bottom of that bulb it's going to be a little bit darker for most people because the light's coming from this direction. And then those areas around your nose are probably going to be a little darker inside the eye areas. And you can just add a little bit of charcoal in there. And you'll see that the nose starts to pull forward as you're doing this. As you're shading in the areas around the nose naturally looks like it's more three-dimensional. And we still haven't drawn lines that define the nose. And you can start with the big areas, the big spaces. Don't worry a lot about the details when you're first starting. Pick an area that you think would be easy, that's sort of flat, not a lot of changes. Start with those areas so you get the hang of how you're going to do this shading. And then once you get the hang of the charcoal, that's when you can move into some of the more complicated areas like the nose, the lips, the eyes. Now if I get to the lips here, One of the things we talked about was the line that separates the lips is one of the darkest lines. So you can probably go back over that with your charcoal. But the other thing that really defines the lips are that they're at two different angles. They're sort of like this. So one of the lips is catching the light, and if the light's coming from the top, the upper lip is blocking the light and the lower lip is catching the light. So usually you can just start by just filling in the upper lip with a little bit of charcoal, and that will push the upper lip back. Notice how I didn't draw the upper lip. I didn't draw an outline around the upper lip. All I did was just shade it in, and all of a sudden I have an upper lip and a lower lip. Now the lower lip is catching a little bit light on the top, but at the bottom it's being pushed back here. So I'll add a little bit of charcoal on the bottom there, and that'll push the lower lip back. Then I'm also the shape of my chin, and then hair is a whole different portion. I'll get to my beard in a second. Now, for those of you, well, everybody has different haircut. Remember, the hair, you drew the outline of the hair. Now, after you draw the outline of the hair, then you have to come back in and look for the hair texture. And if I was looking for the hair texture here, I'm probably going to start with drawing the edges, and then doing the texture, I should say, on the edges, and doing the texture where the hair starts. And then I leave the inside of the hair sort of empty as sort of a highlight area. The different colors, different hair are going to be lighter or darker, so it really depends on your hair color. But either way, you're probably going to have some texture going on in your hair. And it's important to just do as little as possible. Really focus on those edges where you do the textures. But don't really focus too much on the inside, those areas. So I could come back in, I could do the rest of this side of the face very similar to the way that I did the other side. Just lightly shading, looking for the overall shape of the face, and then coming back and blending. Again, one of the great things about charcoal is that it leaves this very soft, finished look. And that soft, finished look works really well with soft changes like you have in your face. Great making things look three-dimensional. So, pretty good. I'll go in, I'll do the eyes. There's a lot of work left to do. But that's pretty much the process. After you get, and I started doing some of these details here. After you get the basic shading, that's when you can go back in and refine the details. So now I could come back into this mouth and really look at that, how the lips are separated, and really start to get that line that separates them. And one more thing, if you find areas that should be, and you save this for the end, and I'm not quite to the end yet, but let's say that this area was complete, then I start looking for where are the brightest brights on my picture. And I could come back in and using my highlighting tool, or my highlighting utensil, this white color pencil, I can start to just bring out a little bit of those very light areas. And that just adds one more layer of three-dimensional quality to my work. And I'll go ahead, I'll do one eye. Eyes are tricky. I'm going to start by just looking at that iris. Once you get the iris down, you know how dark everything else is. Everything else should be around it. So I start by shading in that iris, and when I get to the eye, I'm not blending a whole lot. I'm actually I'm using the charcoal pencil more like a pencil now, rather than like blending charcoal. And you really got to look for that tip, that nice sharp point that you're making every time you're shading with it. You'll find it. You have to look for it though. These are not pencils that you put in the pencil sharpener. You really have to be a little bit more observant as to where the tips are. And then eyes and eyelids. This is a very complicated area. If you have trouble with this, don't feel bad. It takes years to really learn how to do eyes really well. And you're always learning new things too about how to do eyes. But it is a very complicated area. Some of you are going to want to take that highlight and just color all the white of your eye white. And really, the white of your eye is not the lightest part of your face, probably, because your eyes are set in. So the reflection in your eye may be really light, but the actual whites of your eye are not as bright as you probably think they are. And if you make them really white, you're going to look like a cartoon with your eyes bugging out of your head. Alright, well, I'm going to stop there. Hopefully that was enough for you to get the idea here. And this takes practice, so if you don't get it the first time, don't feel bad. Got plenty of paper, plenty of pencils.